Hello and welcome, dear investor. This video is about Tesla. I think if you watch this video, it's not the first video you see about Tesla, but it might be the first video of someone owning Tesla stocks, and I will tell you when or if I will sell my stocks, why I invested in Tesla and what I'm going to do now, because I'm happy about more than 100,000 US dollar capital gains right now. Okay, in my point of view, there exist two types of stocks you might invest in. It's no-brainers first and speculative investments second. No-brainers, it's stocks like Johnson & Johnson, 3M, but also technology stocks like Microsoft, for example. These are all solid companies and they increase their profits in the long term. And if you invest in such stocks and if you keep them long enough in your portfolio, then you will profit by growing capital gains and dividends if they pay dividends as well. What's interesting for no-brainers is still the valuation. If the stock is crazily overvalued, for example, or not. But it's even more important that you choose a company which increases its profits in the long term. And this is exactly both quality of the stock, long-term profit growth of the company, and valuation. This is exactly what dividend stocks is good for. It makes long-term profit growth visible. And then there exists the second type of stock you can also invest in. It's what I call speculative investment. If you make speculative investments, then you need a story. This story, you need a clear picture, a vision, if you want, so to judge if the vision is still intact after you bought the stock. So you know first why you bought the stock, and second, you can verify if the story still holds true, and if not, you will have to sell the stock regardless if you realize capital losses or not. That's exactly what I did with Wirecard, because I'm not always on the winner side. With Wirecard, I lost about 25,000 euro or about 30,000 US dollar. And I will, before we go to Wirecard, I will show you what my story looked like with Wirecard, which was obviously wrong. But anyway, I had a story, and after the story was broken, I sold my Wirecard and I realized all these capital losses. Oh, here we are. So my story was that you see here the operating margins, and the operating margins were often criticized of Wirecard as being too high. And I said, I believe these margins are true and they are not cheating. And I believed, because the margins are already so high since 2007, and they only slightly increased in the years before, they were already nearly as high, or already, yes, very high. And in 2006, for example, revenue was 80 million, and then my revenues were in 2019 2.5 billion. And my argument was, if margins are, if they cheat with the margins, then the false numbers must be very high. Meanwhile, because the revenues increased dramatically, and the auditors should have seen this already very long time ago. Obviously, the auditors did not see, did not discover the cheating till very recently, and then it was about 1.9 billion. For me, it was very unlikely that something like this happens, and that was my story. And after it was clear, and that was why I was invested long in Wirecard, and after it was clear that there was a cheating, I sold the stock because my story was broken. And now it's about Wirecard, and it's about Tesla, and I think I will show you my Tesla investment right now first. So let's do it. it's here. You should see now my position. It's in the so-called trader workstation, and here you see my Wirecard investment, my position. It's about 121,000 US dollar capital gains, still unrealized right now. And you might think, poor boy, you need to sell your Tesla stocks today because tomorrow you will be angry about yourself because the stock will only be worth half as much as right now. And maybe you are even right. I can't tell you what will happen the next days, weeks, or even months, even next year. I can't exactly say what will happen with the stock price, but to me, it doesn't matter. Why doesn't it matter? Because I also have a story for Tesla, and the story is still intact. So let's go back to the other screen here, and I will tell you something about Tesla right now. Maybe also interesting is to have a look at the other car makers. And if you see, you've probably already heard about this or even seen, but here are the largest car makers in the world, and Tesla is the number one with market capitalization of 285 billion US dollar. Number two is Toyota, already outclassed, and the other car makers are really small today compared to the market capitalization of Tesla. It's really crazy within such a short time. Okay, what's the story about Tesla? Tesla, I was long time already fascinated about Tesla, about their technology, about their approach, about their advances, but Tesla was, for me, very long time a make or break company. Either they go bankrupt or they will rule the world, something like this. And I didn't know what will happen, and I didn't want to gamble. But after in 2018, I think it was October 2018, they posted their first real good quarter. Then I was convinced, I thought, that they will it's more probable that they will rule the world than they will go bankrupt. And that was when I was buying the Tesla stock. It was 100 stocks I bought, and you can see it here. I bought the stocks here in October. It was 310 US dollars, something like that. And then I had hard times, and I had capital losses of about nearly 50% within a very short time period. But my story was still intact. I remember I wanted to tell you my story. So why might Tesla rule the world? Because they lead in technology, they lead in digitalization, so it's a driving computer, and they lead in electric mobility, which will most probably, in my point of view, outclass the combustion engine very soon, also in mass production. And the other car makers won't catch up with Tesla. I don't see any chance for them because from the thinking, from the structure of these companies, they are like dinosaurs. Tesla is like a startup. Tesla is like a 286 billion startup fighting against the old way of car production. And the old way of car production, Tesla choose even the battlefield, the battleground, where they might now compete with Tesla. It's the digitalization, and with the autonomous driving and so on, and it's the electric how do you say, the electric engine instead of the combustion engine. And if Tesla would have been bankrupt, then I'm sure that any of these companies bought the technology, maybe in a consortium, and they would have get rid of the technology to continue their business as usual, because for them it was very comfortable to operate with a combustion engine. Anyway, basically this is my story, and I think the story is still intact. And if the story is intact and I want to invest in Tesla for a very long time as an investor, so why should I sell the stock? I give you an example with Amazon, and I will ask you when you should have sold Amazon. So this is Amazon, and look at the chart of Amazon. Today, Amazon is a no-brainer investment, but it wasn't for a long time. I had no story for Amazon. I bought Amazon when it was a no-brainer already. And here you see the logarithmic chart. And you see that there were also bad times for investors in Amazon, with capital losses for about for more than a year. Heavy capital losses. You lost more than half of your capital. Then here another one within a very short time during the financial crisis. You lost about half of your capital losses. And I also think that something like this will of course happen with Tesla. Tesla is a volatile stock, but the problem is I am human, which means I don't know when we will have these capital losses. But what I know is my story, and I know that the story, or I think that the story is still intact. And if you just buy the stock, even if you bought, for example, Amazon here, then first you had the capital losses and you still owned it till today, then you profited on average annual return of 26.4%, although the first year of investment was a very hard one. And why shouldn't this happen to Tesla too if I'm correct about the story of Tesla? And that's why I invested. On the one hand. On the other hand, I admit that the chart here on the stock price is a little bit looks a little bit crazy from a fundamental point of view. It's not possible that from a valuation approach that in March 2020 the company was fairly valued at $430, and some months later it's fairly valued for $1,440. It's still the same company. There are just 4 months between. That doesn't change that much. And you might completely valid argument that this stock price is fundamentally crazy right now. It's a short squeeze, a short-lived short squeeze, and the stock price will drop considerably back to this level, or don't know, whatever, but there will be dramatic capital losses to expect within a very short time. And maybe you are right, but it's also possible that the stock price will keep going up, either because it's a short squeeze or it's a combination of different factors. They will enter the S&P 500, and many institutional investors will buy this, many ETFs. I don't know, whatever. I just know that I don't know what will happen in the short term. But I know that my personal story is still intact, and that's why I'm not really inclined to sell this stock. On the one hand. On the other hand, the stock price really looks a little bit fundamentally crazy, and I will show you one thing I did yesterday. Yesterday I offered all my 100 stocks for sale. For sale, what does it mean? I sold stock options. Here you see it. And I said, okay, the stock price was 1,700 something US dollar, and the volatility, the prime for my stock options was so high that I told I made an offer. I said, okay, I will sell my stocks for 2,700 US dollar each, nearly $1,000 more than they were worth. And the offer is valid 11 days. I sold them on the options on 13th of July, yesterday, and the options maturity was 24th of July, and I got for each single stock 51 US dollar prime, so in sum for 5,100 US dollars, and that was just so attractive for me that I really said, okay, I will take either the money or sell the stock for 2,700 US dollars, because already now it's fundamentally crazy a little bit, but then it will be even more crazier. One more thing, why I'm not going to sell the stock, because I will have to pay taxes on my capital gains, 26%. So that's not nice too. It means that just buying back the stock on a little bit deeper level won't do the things for me. It must be at a much deeper level, because I will have to compensate the tax losses. Anyway, 2,700 US dollar looked attractive for me within the next 11 days. What happened yesterday was that the stock price dropped again. There was a correction. All capital gains of the day vanished, which meant that I sold back the stock options just some hours later with about 50% profit, 50% profit of all of the complete prime, which means I made profit of about 2,600 US dollar. But that was really fundamental craziness, and it was so attractive for me to sell the stock options. Why that? And I thought, okay, just do it and buy the stock later after the correction. So you see that there are, even for me, there are limits if my story is still intact, if craziness is just too high. And I right now observe the stock price, and if there's another occasion like this, I will sell stock options on my Teslas once more. On 22nd of July, if I remember well, there will be the earnings call, and that's another reason why the volatility of the stock is so high. Anyway, I now told you why I'm invested. When I invest in speculative investments, when I do them, if I have a story, what was my story about Wirecard, which obviously failed, which is my story about Tesla, which is still intact. This is also the reason why I'm not really inclined to sell the stock, and when I will make the exception and even sell the stock, although my story is still intact. I hope that was interesting for you. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.